Welcome to Worlds Collide, a wrestling card podcast for wrestling fans by wrestling fans, featuring Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com.
This is like a stock market.
And Zhan Morning from Wrestling with Cards on YouTube. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, I'm just posing the question. Join them as they navigate the world of wrestling cards, helping you build a bigger and better collection and making some money along the way. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Did a little bit of a different intro that time. Back to normal for once, because we've
every
done
week is something different.
Yeah, that's what we like to do, except for our shirts. Well, Tony has a hat on, but we've actually been on the road. We decided to go out with Motley Crue. We were their roadies for their walkers, so they could get on stage. We were in charge of the walkers.
Yes, I'm actually currently recording from Budapest right now, which is where they're at.
Yeah, and I had to go back home, but regardless, we're still in the same outfits. We haven't showered. We've barely eaten anything, but here we are, back to talk.
It happens to me on the road, man. I only know about they're in Budapest last night, by the way, which is a fact at the time of this recording.
Well, yeah, you're there, of course.
No, really, because I have a good friend of mine that keeps posting on. He works with Pantera, and so he's out there traveling, and it's a night off for them. So in the same town, they've got Motley Crue and Poison are playing. So he was sharing some of his posts because he works a lot of backstage stuff with Pantera and has a lot of good access out there. So that's the reason why I know.
A little bit off topic because, we like to throw those in occasionally. What's your opinion on bands who continue with little to no members? We're seeing that with Pantera right now.
I mean, Pantera, to me, it's weird. If you have the original voice, it's almost like you can have a supporting act around you from the original voice. I mean, so many artists have done that. I mean, Axl did that with Guns N' Roses for a long time. The list goes on and on, actually, if you want to talk about that kind of stuff. But you start replacing the voice, it's very rare that the new voice carries on. I mean, top of my head, Maiden, AC/DC, Van Halen. I mean, there's three bands right there that had a replacement voice that exceeded. I mean, sorry, Roth fans, but Sammy Hagar stuff sold more records than Van Halen, the original Van Halen did.
It is true.
It's just, it's rare. So I don't know. There's a certain point when you have some of the key dynamics of a band that ends up leaving, it almost becomes a cover band at that point. With Phil still being the voice, and you got Brown still playing on bass, it's really hard to replace, Vinny and Dimebags like that. But
pretty good replacements though, and Zakk Wylde and what's his name from Anthrax.
Yep, it's still good replacements, but it pays good homage, and I think the fans are still. The numbers don't lie. It's almost like let's bring it back to the collectible world. People are like, Panini sucks. Well, numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie on that anymore. we're past that,
man. You can just
and just like the collectibles, the band getting back together is providing entertainment for people. Yep. They're bringing back nostalgia for people.
Yep.
And they're also lining their monies with some pockets. So I'm not against anybody making money and making people happy at the same time. So we'll end it on that.
Yep.
Not the show, guys. We're going to continue on the show. And speaking of money, we're going to transition into today's topic, which is, does the cards and the value associated with them actually matter? We just talked about this last week on how everything from your pen to a Hogan All-Stars card is an asset. Everything is an asset. But in my opinion, and this was kind of my topic, I think that kind of thought process of just looking at the cards as these hardline assets has become a little inflated. Now, I know that's the way things have been for ages. Everybody, we talked about it last week. You pull a card that maybe isn't a PC card, and the first thing you do when you're a kid or back in the day is, what's a Beckett value? What's the card shop going to give me on for this? And while that is true, and I still do that because, Tony does it too. We run businesses with collectibles. We know how this thing goes. But when we're looking at like PC items that might want to just step back and look at these things from a different way. And what brought this up is, I talk about engagement. I had some engagement. I want to shout out at Modern WWE King on Twitter. We had a back and forth, and I just wanted to read a Twitter back and forth with this. So what this spawned from is me posting a picture of the Disney 100 cards, which were, I think, out of China, or I think they're from China. And I had to get The Rock because it ties together my love for Disney, my love for wrestling, The Rock. I got the fireworks parallel, and it was cool to see the fireworks for the first time at Disney at night. All these things, it's numbered to 100. It's kind of hard to find. It wrapped out all these things. And the last thing I was thinking of when I bought this was, oh, what's the comp? What is this going to be worth in 10 years? What can I flip this for? I just didn't care. And my tweet was that I'm going to paraphrase my tweet, but basically there's a lot of people out there saying when these new products come out, whether it's wrestling, we saw it with Panini, or whether it's Star Wars or Marvel, or in this case, Disney, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, look at these guys. They're just doing the pump and dump routine. They're just jumping from one thing to the next. But I think what they need to do is stop and realize that people like me and other people out there can actually have a connection with these collectibles. They might be a pump and dump for some people, but for some people, they're legitimately part of a PC. So that was my tweet. And his reply was, I'm going to read this verbatim. I think the cards look really good. The problem is it's hard to judge long-term value versus value on that set that has zero comparative relationship in the hobby. However, if you can get it for cheap, who cares? My reply, who cares about the value when you connect with the cards? The value on cards is all people seem to care about anymore. It just gets old. His reply, value comes into play when you have to figure out what you're willing to spend on a card, because for most of us, funds are finite. My reply, I guess that's where we disagree. If I see a card I want or I need, I just pay what I'm willing to pay for it and what I can afford, not what the comp is or what I think it will be worth in the future. And his reply is, that makes sense. We get cards all the time, and I have to put my computer on this, that I have to put on the side of my computer, because I know I would just buy them without thinking about it. My point was more about general hobby and how they approach it. Yep. So kind of a lot to wrap around there. What is your initial thought on that discussion?
I'm in agreement with you, and I've said this before a lot anyways, and that is, if you connect with a piece of cardboard that, as we've talked before, is they're nostalgic pieces, especially in wrestling more than anything else, I think. And you find something for you, the Disney card, it tied in all those things for you that was important to you, that makes you feel good. If you love what you bought and people say you overpaid, did you really overpay?
No.
I mean, you didn't. You didn't overpay. I mean, who cares? Again, it goes back to, don't tell me how to use my wallet. Wallet sits in my pants, not your pants. I decide how I want to spend my money. If I overpaid, then I overpaid. Of course, I want to do my due diligence and try to get the best deal possible sometimes, but sometimes we don't sit in a position where we have that time frame to do that. Maybe, oh my God, I just saw this auction. It ends in 5 minutes, and I got to get it. I want to buy this. I didn't even know, and you pay more. Right. You know what? At the end of the day, I don't care. Went for $20 less everywhere else, and I paid $20 more, or I don't care, $2,000 more. Right. Good example is the Rock sale that we had for $126,000. Oh, well, that guy's never going to make his money back. Who the hell says he wants to sell to begin with? Yeah. And $126,000, that person is, $5 to you. Maybe. So yeah, don't judge people. People like to judge other people for how they spend things and put these values on things that they feel is justified, when it's only justifiable to your own wallet. So maybe it's a lot of money, to you, but it's not to some people. So telling people how to spend their money is a ridiculous thing, first off. So finding something that makes you connected to that card and you're willing to pay for it, the value goes out the window. Right. It's the monetary value. There's other things that people should think about too, like emotional value, which I don't think anybody really thinks about sometimes. And wrestling seems to bring out a lot of passion from people across the board, whether you're old school, new, or anything in between. So a lot of passion and emotional decisions get made when buying certain things, because you want to have them to remind you of something that makes you smile, makes you happy, whatever. So I think you're right. I think the value means absolutely nothing at that point to you, because it's something that you want to have, and I don't give a shit how much I got to pay for it. Transitioning into some kind of bullet pointed topics we have kind of under this discussion to break it down a little bit.
I would like to get your opinion on this. Now, we're going to do a whole episode on this about what does a collector mean. And I'm not going to go to the level, like when I say this, I'm not going to this level like I'm this elitist collector, like collector only, not the invest bro. Or like I make fun of that stuff occasionally. But I think for me personally, from my perspective, we've hit this point where for the mass majority of the hobby, the value is more important than the card itself. It's almost like these are treated more so as commodities, which is fine. Tony, you say it to the intro. It's a stock market. I understand. But it gets to the point where whether it is the base carrying cross stuff, whether it is a, 82 Hogan PSA 9, if you can find that one, like no matter what it is, like you've got to have a connection to have the interest in these cards to begin with. So do you think we're at this point now where the majority of people are viewing box breaks, PCs, all these things more from a value than the actual card itself and enjoying that piece of cardboard or that piece of plastic if it's an action figure, etc.?
Yeah, it seems to be the more common theme is that everything has a value attached to it, and that's just life. It really
right,
does.
And it does. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, from the collector perspective, it seems like we've got to jump the shark on that.
Kinda. And you're gonna have, again, we talk about this, we're like, what's a true collector? It's like
we'll get into that later on.
I absolutely hate that phrase, that term of what's a true collector. Oh, well, us true collectors want this. No, what true collector of what? By whose definition? Your definition? Because your definition doesn't jive with my definition. So how about you go over there and true collect yourself over there while I go true collect myself over here?
Don't give away too much. That's going to be a whole other show.
Yeah. So value does play a key in a lot of things, unfortunately, but you get a guy like Paul from the Price Guide. Obviously value means something to him.
As it should for everybody. Again, I'm not saying it shouldn't.
As it should. But his approach to collecting is different than other people's approaches, probably. Because he has a particular thing that he wants to go out and collect. Obviously your income level is going to, affect how and what it is you can collect. But, value is unfortunately the greater things like that. We see more box breaks, more case breaks, more, whatnots going on. I mean, all this stuff's going on. And that's just the unfortunate thing. And the flip side too, the argument can be made that people get involved in those things because it actually saves them money sometimes, because I'm just going to put a minimal amount in here, roll the dice and kind of get what I get kind of thing out of it. So it goes both ways, I guess. I don't know. I don't get involved in those kind of things. I shop for what I collect with the absolute bare minimum value in my mind. It's one of the reasons why I collect extra Loomis stuff, just because I don't find him to be, he's not a, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns type level, name where I have to pay big money for. So when guys come at me and say, hey, Tony, look, there's this 1 of 1 or number 10 Dexter Loomis, things like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying $1,000 for that. Sorry. That's just, Loomis isn't $1,000 collection to me.
That's another interesting thing too, is if you get into wrestling cards and you're like, I want to collect The Rock, Roman Reigns, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, like, okay, well, you better get your wallet ready, and
if that's what you plan to do,
right?
Sometimes you can go like, you know what, I'm collecting Rock stuff that's unique because I like Rock stuff from The Mummy Returns or Scorpion King or the Disney thing, and that's my connection to Rock, because I know that he's a wrestler and I'm kind of into wrestling, but I'm more into The Rock because he's an actor to me, kind of thing.
Or the connection, like maybe that was a movie they went and saw with a family member, and that memories and blah blah blah. And so it's an inexpensive way. Like, we've talked about that before. So let's move on to the next thing, and that's the value when buying. And again, I'm breaking down kind of the bullet points of this conversation I had with, once again, shout out Modern WWE King on Twitter. Thanks for going back and forth. We talk about engagement all the time, and this is exactly what we're talking about. Tony, when you're buying a card, and I think we touched on this a little bit already, but does the value matter? You're going after a Dexter Loomis card, or you're looking, I think we can do this from two different perspectives, because we both are going to have, I think, the same perspective. You're going after Loomis, you're buying a collection that someone brings into the store. Talk us through what your process is mentally. Are you considering the value of the card on the initial purchase?
if I'm looking at it, someone comes in the store and wants to sell me a Dexter Loomis collection because they know I'm a Dexter Loomis collector, or they just happen to come in different factors of why they come in the store to sell something. Hey, you're Tony. I heard you collect Dexter Loomis. Now we have a different kind of conversation as opposed to like, hey, here's a collection of cards. Oh, a lot of them have to be Dexter Loomis and stuff like that. I can play dumb and just say like, oh, hey, I collect Dexter Loomis stuff. Oh, or like, oh, nobody cares about that guy, and I can negotiate, based on that, as opposed to like someone coming in saying, oh, you're the Dexter Loomis guy, so let me here, I'm gonna sell you this. Sometimes people can play on that, going like, oh, I know you collect this guy, so I'm gonna charge you this much,
right?
Because I know you want it. Yeah, but you know what? I don't want it as bad as you think you think I want it. So
yep.
I passed on a lot of Loomis stuff over the last 6 to 8 months, probably, from people passing on, which I appreciate. Totally great. I love being that guy where they go like, oh, yeah, that guy, Vela,
Same.
he's a Loomis guy, but I'm also kind of mindful of like, well, I don't attach a lot of big values to him based on previous purchases. So like, I know what I paid for certain like Revolution Galactic cards for him, like that. So I'm not going to go pay. And those are much harder to come by,
right,
than number to 10 cards, number to 25 cards, that kind of thing. So I'm not going to pay as much on a number to 10 card as I did on a Galactus. I'm sorry. It's just, I know what I paid that stuff and they're harder to come by. So I have to have that kind of frame of mind for myself. So I do apply values to things, but based on, it's a case-by-case basis for me.
right.
So sometimes I'm going to play dumb, and other times I'm going to play, like, well, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to pay that much because it's Loomis. And that's predominantly my conversations with people is like, well, one of the reasons why I collect him is because I don't think he's a high value type of, character. So I'm not paying a whole lot of money. So your $400 asking price for this number to 25 card is just probably at least $350 too much for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of approach things the same way. So going back to, when he was talking about we only have so much funds to spend on cards. So a lot of times if I see a cross card or an all-stars card, something I know that I need for the PC, the value isn't what is the comp. The value is what can I afford? What can
Correct.
I afford that you're not going to put yourself in debt over, that you can't recoup real quick with cards or something.
But you
like
still
that.
use those comps, though, to kind of help you gauge and base your decision.
Oh yeah, right. But I think there's just and Tony, I'm sure you've dealt with these people who are just like hard, fast rules on comps. Like it's sold for 100, I got to do 100. They're not like, I'm like, oh well, I'll pay 150. Like it doesn't matter, or I'll pay less than that. It doesn't matter, but just ballpark. And then when I'm getting a collection in, or let's go back a little bit. If somebody's bringing me that card and it fits my PC, I'm willing to pay comps. I'm willing to pay over comps, under comps, whatever. It's what can I afford? That's the value that's more important to me. What is easier for me to pay the money for at that time, whether it's $1 or $1,000, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. What can I afford, not what the comps are. Now, on the flip side, if people are bringing bulk and collections to me, it's 100% business at that point.
Yep.
I have certain rates I buy things at, and it just is what it is. The emotion is completely out. And hey, if there's some cross cards buried in there, then cool. Like you said, bonus. I'll take them. Yeah. So that's kind of from a value perspective. I think maybe, if you're in this to do flips and view these things like commodity, the value on your initial buy is going to be a lot more important than if it's an item you're buying for a PC. So anything on that you want to touch on before we move on to the next one?
No, same thing. Same with me. I mean, I'm getting people come in the store, they bring in collections to me, and if it's a bulk deal, that's a whole different ball game than just being very specific and nitpicking certain things like that. I had a guy recently sold me a collection of stuff that had autographs and had like an Undertaker autograph and things like that. And he had a Prism Edge, gold, number 10. And I'm like, I'm just not going to pay a whole lot on that one right now. And then he took it out of the equation. And so we made a deal for something like that. It came back later, ended up selling me that Edge card for a lot less than what I was going to end up buying it from the, in the collection. It works out different ways. So
again, case by case basis. It's
always case by case. So that's how I feel about it.
So moving on to the other end of this perspective, and this is one where I think me and you are going to be on the same page, and we're going to be different than like 90% of the hobby. And that's how you view value when you're selling an item. So I'm going to start this, and I am a firm believer in moving stale inventory, or the card that, and what I mean by that is if you're running a business like me and Tony, and you've got cards that have been, you know, in your store for years. Nobody wants them. Move them for whatever you can, even sometimes at a loss, to then put that into something else. Number one. I do that same process with my PC. I go through every month what absolutely has to stay. I'm not going to say a coffin card. Again, reference the last episode for us talking about your succession plans. But, you know, this Hogan PMG, still looking good, still staying in the PC. But maybe this Roman Reigns card, like, maybe I've like kind of lost some luster on that. Maybe I can let that go. Or, you know, and I think that is, and when I do let it go, like, sure, I'll set the sale, the initial price for around comps, but I'm willing to go above or below that. I'm willing to do, you know, multiple deals. But Tony, I don't know about, I know you've dealt with this, but I think I maybe have dealt with this a lot more because people are starting to come to me with higher end cards they want to sell as well as bulk. And I just don't think they understand that process. And I think maybe I understand their perspective if they don't sell all the time, because maybe they sell one card a year. And that one card is very important to them to get that value out of, for them to put that into the next card, or for them to put that into something else life related. But they, in turn, also don't understand the business aspect of it, from fees and shipping and all the stuff that's going to go into it. So when I'm selling, I use the comps and just kind of that kind of stuff, what I paid for it, etc., as a guideline. Again, you've talked about this before. If you're into a card for $1, you list it for 20, nobody's buying it for 2 years. Somebody sends you an offer for 5. Take it. Like, you're not going to squeeze the greed and the max value out of it, but you still win. The card goes to a collector that they want. Everybody wins. So from my perspective, from a selling, I do use the value as like a baseline, but it's not a hard and fast rule for me.
Same thing. I mean, as I'm buying collections here, whether it be figures, magazines, whatever it may be, cards here in the store, you know, I check the comps on things, not in front of the person while I'm with them. I mean, we make our deal based on whatever we both feel comfortable about. Then I go back and kind of go, did I do good? Did I do bad? You know, kind of thing. So I'll go and look up stuff, and I kind of just, my philosophy always been, I can negotiate down, I can't negotiate up.
Right. 100% agree.
When I have something, I'll put a price at it and say, I'm asking $10 for this item, you know, and someone will say, hey, will you take 6? You know, I was like, oh, how about I take 7? You know, that's part of the you know, the haggling process, I guess. But I leave myself room to kind of go down in price sometimes. But like you said, dead inventory too. I'm a big believer in moving dead inventory, because it's not making me a damn thing sitting on the floor day after day, week after week, month after month. And I say, you know what? I paid $15.61 on this particular figure from my distributors like that. I'm just going to sell it for $10, get it out of my damn stores like that, because I can't even sell it for cost. I'll take the $5 hit on it. And you know what? Yeah, I lost money on it, but I can take that $10, reinvest in something else that probably ends up making me another $10 on top of that. So I break even at that point. I keep doing that over and over and over again. I'm still making money then.
Yep.
People don't understand too, especially when you're talking about 25 cent, 50 cent, 99 cent type items like that. You know, it's like, oh, how do you make money on that? It's like, well, I don't know. I got a 5,000 count box, you know, that I pay $50 for. And I got all these items in there I sold for 75 cents a piece or 50 cents a piece after all the fees and stuff like that. I don't know. You do the math. 50 cents times 5,000. That adds up.
Yeah, especially off that initial, you know, $50 investment that you bought it for, or
and
whatever.
It's hard sometimes for people to kind of grasp that, because like they're thinking, well, what can I flip it for immediately? Not much, because you paid so little. It's worth probably so little as a bulk, because other bulk collectors or buyers are going to pay you bulk pricing. But if you're willing to do the work and break it all down into individual types singles, over the long run, you're going to make way much more money than you thought possible.
Well, and we've talked about it too. They don't maybe think that way because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and we've spoke about before how a lot of people don't want to put that work in, and that's okay. You know, it's not for everybody, but that we've spoke about the prerogative of different people and what they want to do as far as like going out there and trying to put in the work to get those sorts of things. So,
yep, agreed.
All right, moving on. Last thing. How does your overall hobby experience revolve around value? I will start this off and give it. It's very easy. Kind of mentioned it. When it comes to PC, I've got the Hogan signed all-stars, got the rest of the all-stars, trying to get that all, the signed set, working on upgrading those, getting them signed, getting them graded, the whole process. Got the cross collection, got the other kind of odds and ends cards that I just think are really cool. From a PC perspective, a person could look at some of the stuff and say, oh, Zhan, you got some great investments. You've got some great future value cards. I don't care. I don't care about the value of any of that stuff. Is it valuable?
That tells you that tells you their mental perspective on things.
Yeah.
It 100% tells you where they come at from the collectible world, what's important to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no,
if their importance is like value and always value, that's great. That's their view. So I can't knock that. So
no, I'm not knocking it at all. It's just that's when I look at my PC, cross, all that stuff I just named, I'm not looking at it from like, what is this going to be worth? What is the investment in this? Now, on the flip side, all the cards I buy for business perspective, or somebody comes to me with a collection, or they just want to get out of the hobby, which I don't want you to keep, reinvest your cards, stay in the hobby, switch lanes if you need to, side tangent. But that's different. I do look at the initial value of what I'm paying, as we both spoke about, because again, at that point, my emotion is all out of it. It's not a PC, it's just business. And I think both of those worlds that I've just spoke about kind of intertwine with your PC, because again, if you find that PC item, you thought it was cool 5 years ago, all of a sudden, I'm not really into that anymore. It's not, oh, wait, I only paid $5 for this and now it's worth 50. I'm going to do that and sell that and put that into what I am currently collecting.
Yeah, it becomes a bonus, I mean, you're buying out of nostalgia and passion in the beginning. And then if it doesn't strike you the same way, like you said, you check, yourself once a month and it's just not hitting you the way it used to. Maybe it's time to move on. And now you can turn around and sell that stuff. And that's where value then becomes an issue for you then. You want to sell your stuff, want to get the most out of it, and you want to parlay that into something now that you're more passionate about, that you don't care what the value is really, because you want to, I don't care really over the end of the day, what my the ultimate value of my Dexter Loomis stuff is going to be. I'm just having fun right now collecting what I collect.
Right.
When it doesn't become fun for me anymore, then I'll sell it. And if I sell it for less than what I paid for,
you get what you get.
You gotta get what I get out of it, But
you had you had all that time of entertainment out of it.
Yeah, and I just I don't care at that point anymore about the value that's still. Now, there are other pieces that maybe I would invest in because I'm looking at it specifically and 100% as a future value type of item. That's a whole different mindset, and so I do the same thing with that. Then I have to look at that. Do I care about continuing to hold this because it's investments like that? That becomes a whole different conversation with myself. Same line, but different conversation with different outlook. So value is always going to be there. So, the whole premise of our conversation here is, the value of your cards matter. It's both a yes and a no. So it depends on where, how you're collecting and why you're collecting. If you're in it specifically for, again, treating it like stock options, and value is always going to be a key factor for you. 100%.
Which is okay. I'm not saying we both agreed. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're in it because it, strictly for nostalgic pieces, the connections, it's Disney, it's this, it's that, it's whatever the case may be, that's a whole different thing. So yes and no for me. Value of cards do matter to me.
I also want to close this episode with this quick story. I mentioned this on the Wrestling with Cards podcast, my solo podcast. Make sure to check that out. Links in the show notes, or you can search it wherever you listen to podcasts. But Tony, I mentioned you and your story about how your Hogan card essentially set you up with the seed money for the store.
Yep.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you sold that card let's go back several years, your initial purchase of that card, when you bought that card, I could almost guarantee that you weren't thinking, "Oh, I'm going to flip this and it's going to."
Oh no!
Yeah. So I
bought it because it was cool and I had to have it.
There you go. And my kind of closing thought is, most people in the hobby, if they got to a point where they were able to part with a item, whether it's a figure, card, memorabilia, that actually really set themselves up for future massive PC buys, set their family up for the future, were able to pay for a house, a car, whatever it is, most of the time, that stuff came out of necessity of truly wanting the item and not putting the value first.
This is why it's important to do a will, people.
Going back, yeah, we're just tying all these things together. Speaking of last week's, thank you guys for listening to last week's if you listened, and thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button. Leave us that Dave Meltzer 5-star review if you're enjoying this. Let other people know about the show. Tell it with the world. Tag us on social media. And again, this episode that you're listening to today was brought to you from a conversation on Twitter. So if you get, we're consistently pushing engagement. If you guys want to be a part of the show, hey, we do some roundtable episodes. We've put the offer out there.
It's been a while since we've done that.
Nobody has responded. So if you want to do a roundtable and you'd like to, join us, let us know. Get at us on Twitter. Tony, let everybody know where they can find you.
WrestlingTradingCards.com. Over 20 years of doing what we do. And you can go and find all of our social media handles on the bottom of every single page on the website.
You can find everything I'm doing at Zhan Morning on social platforms, Wrestling with Cards on YouTube, Wrestling with Cards, the podcast. And again, contact us, tag us in a discussion, any kind of engagement, any questions you want to hear discussed on the show, let us know. And until next time, we talk about value on cards and collectibles, but there's one thing that you just can't put the price of value on when it comes to a phrase that's used in this hobby. But I think Tony may have actually trademarked it because he saw how valuable it has become.
That's right. I originally got it because I just thought it was cool and I wanted to have it. Now, got to make money off of it. If Pat Riley can go ahead and, copyright three-peat.
Yeah. It's same concept there.
So yeah, same concept there. But yeah, I mean, it's true though, but it's 100% true because we all know that wrestling cards rule.
Rule, brother. We'll see ya.
Yeah.